Closing off my defibrillation series with dual sequential defibrillation. Dual sequential defibrillation is when you use two sources of defibrillation to defibrillate your patient sequentially, so one right after the other. You don't have to use the same type of defibrillator. You just need to be able to initiate two successive shocks. And this is done with two sets of pads, one in the anterior lateral position and one in the anterior posterior position. This is why some people now are recommending that if you do have the capability to perform a dual sequential defibrillation, that you start with the pads in the AP position so you don't have to roll the patient later. Dual sequential defibrillation has been proven by the DOSE-VF trial to be effective in terminating and increasing survival in refractory ventricular fibrillation and recurrent ventricular fibrillation. Refractory ventricular fibrillation is when in a 10-minute period, you've been defibrillated 3 times, have been given 3 epi and 2 antidysrhythmics like amiodarone or lidocaine, and you stay in ventricular fibrillation. It is not terminated. Recurrent ventricular fibrillation is when you do terminate ventricular fibrillation, but it returns. Now, the school of thought behind dual sequential defibrillation is that it just covers more of the left ventricle. You may be able to terminate a lot of that fibrillatory activity with a standard defibrillation, but there might be a little bit of fibrillatory activity in a part of the left ventricle that you didn't reach that just spreads all over the left ventricle again immediately following defibrillation. But this can actually lead to another conclusion, that the inability to defibrillate the entirety of the left ventricle is due to poor pad placement. And so we are overcoming poor pad placement with the brute force of dual sequential defibrillation. What this means is that if you're a crew that has the capability of performing a dual sequential defibrillation, your approach to it should be to minimize the likelihood that you'll have to perform it in the first place. This means placing your pads perfectly the first time. Look at those 2 pads. Can you visualize a vector between those 2 pads that goes through the medius part of the left ventricle? If not, then fix it immediately and then fix everything else. And what I mean by that is, look at the quality of your CPR. Are you swapping compressors? Is the ventilator doing a good job? Is the advanced airway seated properly? Do you need an advanced airway? Are you getting good end tidal? Are all of your lines patent? Have you considered your H's and T's? When you get to the point in your algorithm or your protocols where you're performing dual sequential defibrillation, it should be in spite of the fact that you did everything else right, not to overcome the fact that you didn't. And remember, saving lives begins with kindness.